koto. Hello everyone out there in the showy ovaries universe. Haere mai and welcome along to this podcast where I, Penny Ashton, am navigating a pathway from ignorance to enlightenment, from murkiness to crystal clarity, and from knowing bugger all about menopause to getting a PhD in pink bits, straight from the mouths and experiences of various fabulous women and other owners of ovaries, all about their own menopause journeys. And I'm having the best time talking to a lot of marvellous people. A quick reminder that I am not a doctor. My mother was a nurse. She wore one of those ridiculous cardboard hat things and looked very fetching in the 1960s, but that doesn't qualify me in the slightest. So if you want to seek further medical advice, please do so from your GP or specialist. Today's guest, though, may not be a doctor, but she was a barmaid and they know everything. But more than that, she is at the forefront of the movement in the UK that has been dubbed the Menopause Revolution. She was elected the MP for Swansea East in 2015, is the deputy leader of Welsh Labour, is an activist, a purple-haired powerhouse, and all-round excellent person at getting shit done. She has amazingly made room in her schedule to speak to little old me down here in New Zealand. It's 9 o'clock at night here and 8 a.m. there. So please give a resounding standing ovation from wherever you are and welcome my very first international guest, Carolyn Harris, to Showy Ovaries. Hooray!
Hello, international. Me on the globe at the stage is bloody terrifying, honestly. The people at the end of this, people are going to say, "Oh my God, that woman, she's Welsh, isn't she?" Big rugby fan. I'm going to put that out there. Big rugby fan.
Right, and I'm not, so sorry.
Well, you've got a bit of a formidable team there, which I don't like to mention because Wales are obviously the best in the world. But okay,
obviously.
For today, I'll be respectful and just won't mention them.
Right, okay. Well, I've got a little. I can say to you, Shemai, hello, and Diolch. Thank you very much for coming on my podcast. Yeah, that's a little my broken Welsh there.
It's going to be Bore Dar at the moment because it's, well, actually, I feel like saying good night because it's still dark outside, but it is Bore Dar, actually. Good morning.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yes, I have a very good poet friend in New Zealand who is Welsh, and so I said to her, can you send me not only what it, but sound files to say it?
Easy to say. Yeah. I don't speak Welsh either, so we're all right.
Right, so how is the UK at the moment?
Bloody damp. Yeah, I'm looking out the window here. It's cold. It's absolutely freezing, actually. But, it's coming to that Christmassy feeling, so that's always a good thing. And we can cope with the cold when we got something to wrap up in and we think, oh, it's going to be Christmas Day before long.
You also have good heating. We have terrible heating in New Zealand.
Oh yeah, I'm at that stage at the moment. We got the central heating and the fire on. I haven't at the moment because being in the throes of the menopause or just postmenopausal, I do get a little bit hot.
Right.
At the moment, I'm a bit warm.
Right. Yeah, I've had some people say that they enjoyed the free central heating that they had with menopause. So is it something that bothers you?
Well, yeah, I hate waking up hot.
Yeah, right.
I hate that. I'd rather wake up cold. So the flushes with the menopause, to be warm all night and hot all night is like, oh, that's unbearable.
Right.
I mean, that's just the start, isn't it? Then the restless legs and everything else. Oh, I could go on and on and on and on. And I didn't know it was menopausal.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Well, we'll get to all of that. So do you want to talk to what it's like to be in the UK right now with your lovely Prime Minister and things, or should we just get straight to ladies' parts?
Oh, God. I don't know quite what to say, really. I'll tell you a funny story, though, about Prime Minister. December the 1st. And that's the official, I didn't know this. I'm Welsh, why would I? The official tree lighting ceremony at number 10 Downing Street.
Right.
So I'm invited to number 10 because I do a lot of work on problem gambling.
Yes.
I'm invited to Downing Street to have a meeting with special advisors on Wednesday at 4:00. Tree lighting is 5:00. So I go along at 4:00 and we're walking up Downing Street as you do, and there's all the press there. And I say to my colleague, very tongue-in-cheek, I'm going to be on the news tonight. They say I've joined the Tory cabinet. We have a little giggle. We get to the front door, which normally automatically opens once you get there. But the door doesn't open. But to our left is this really nice Christmas tree, which is in the dark, and a little grey box, which is obviously the doorbell, isn't it? So I press the doorbell. The door opens. But the tree comes on. Think nothing of it. I go in and I say to them, that tree's lovely, isn't it? And they said, oh, yes, the Prime Minister is switching it on at 5:00. And I say, think you may find that I've already done that. So I go up and put the tree off, turn the tree lights off, and go in, have the meeting, come out fine. I'm coming home on the train, and this article started appearing in the local press. When the Prime Minister turned the tree lights on, they didn't work. For some reason, they didn't work. So I, tongue-in-cheek, tweeted, well, they were working fine an hour before when I put them on. So my claim to fame is I turned the tree lights on in Downing Street. I'm going to dine out on that, Penny, for a long time.
What a wonderful allegory / metaphor for Labour getting things done when the Tory party can't. You could say something.
This is true. Yeah, I know. And I'd like to think I've done quite a few of those things since my time in Parliament. I've got things done when I've convinced the Tory party that they need to do these things quite successfully.
Yeah, I have noted that with the campaigns. Yeah. I'm going to mention some of them in your long and even more special introduction. That is a lot of cross-party support, a lot of stuff that you've brought people together on, which is unusual. And particularly in British politics, I mean, you've had some horrible violence around your MPs.
Yeah, it's been a pretty grim environment over the last few years. But, I'm very much a person who believes that the only people that we should really care about providing for are those who elected us to that place in the first place. So if you get there and you use the platform to enhance your own career, you're not doing a very good job, are you? Because I come from a constituency which is like many others across Wales and across the United Kingdom. It has quite a lot of deprivation. It is a very working class constituency. Nobody talks posh here.
Right.
No, nobody thinks posh here.
Right.
And I get really cringy when I go places and they've obviously made an effort to tidy up before I get there. And I'm like, oh God, it's only me. Please don't do that. But I feel a huge sense of gratitude to the people of my constituency for trusting me to be representing them in Parliament. So it's my duty to do things that they need done. It's not my duty to sit there and pontificate about how wonderful I am or how wonderful my political party is. Nobody cares. People care about what affects their life. So when I got there and I started thinking about the things I wanted to do, I realised very quickly that as an opposition MP, the only way I could get things done was to work with people who thought like I did or agreed with what that campaign was to get things changed. And I didn't care what political party they were in. That is how I've survived, I suppose. And that's how I've managed to get things done, is that I will work with whoever it takes to make sure that something happens that needs to happen. And so far it's worked for me and I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to do this introduction now. So here we go. Carolyn Harris is a former barmaid and dinner lady who realised she wanted to make a real, tangible difference in everyday lives, and so pursued a path in politics where she has achieved a remarkable amount in just a few short years. Spurred on by a personal tragedy in losing her son Martin when he was 8 in 1989, Carolyn got cross-party agreement to establish the Children's Funeral Fund to save grieving parents from suffering the same financial burden that she had experienced in trying to give him the funeral that he deserved. She's also been instrumental in lowering harm around automated betting machines, but her latest triumph is around, you guessed it, menopause, where only 1 month ago, Carolyn was successful in her mission to get various menopause treatments costs slashed, which I am frankly astonished that she had to fight for in the NHS. She has led marches on Parliament arm in arm with Davina McCall and Penny Lancaster. She was no doubt instrumental in getting Penny's lesser-known husband, Rod Stewart, to say that all men should have menopause lessons, and she's not stopping there. In her capacity as the chair for the all-party parliamentary group on menopause, she plans to ensure education and access around menopause is fundamental for all. And to cap it all off, she just won a fancy award, and she tweeted this about this award. Gobsmacked and honoured to have been awarded the Campaigner of the Year at the Spectator Parliamentarian of the Year Awards. It's been a fantastic year for the menopause revolution, and I can't wait to see what 2022 takes us. Huge thanks to the Meno Warriors who made this happen. So again, I would like to welcome the Boadicea or Boudica of the Meno Warriors, Carolyn Harris. Hooray!
Hello, Penny. Thanks, Penny. And the Spectator is a very Tory magazine. So yeah, I was really pleased to win that. Bit of recognition. And I really, really did not know I was having it. When I turned up and everybody was like, oh, you've won. I'm like, have I? I really wasn't expecting it. So it was nice.
Well, I read that about you when you first got into university. You were like, oh, they must have made a mistake. When you first
Yeah,
got elected, they were like, oh, they've counted it wrong.
yeah,
So this
yeah.
is like that imposter syndrome is strong with you.
Oh, definitely. Always will be a thing. But then maybe that's what keeps me doing what I do, because I keep feeling the need to prove that I am as good as anyone else. So if I continue to find causes I need championing, and I am a little bit relentless, so I keep on and on and on. But I think I do it because I'm like, so, oh God, if I got to talk posh about this, I'm knackered. So let's do it through action, and it works. So.
Yeah. And as I say, you're taking these topics that, because there's so much fraught stuff around politics, but if people have a collective sharing of grief around children, around the harm of gambling, like sometimes some right-wing people aren't so good about restricting gambling. Is that something you've pushed up against?
Yeah, a lot of people seem to think that people who have a problem gambling should be responsible for their actions. What there is no acknowledgement from some sections is that these individuals are not gambling because they want to gamble. They're gambling because it has become their Achilles heel. It has become their drug of choice.
Yeah.
So whilst
addiction.
you would never say, yeah, it is. So whilst you would never say to somebody who has a drug or an alcohol problem, well, you should be more responsible. You should stop because you understand they can't. They've got to start thinking the same about problem gamblers, and they're everywhere. You know, they are literally everywhere. There will be people you will never ever imagine have got a gambling problem because it's hidden. And until the worst possible things happen, like they lose their home, they lose their family, commit crime, they start getting involved in domestic violence out of frustration, or far too many cases they take their lives, then don't realise it's going on in their world. So I am really, I try to be a really strong voice for people who can't help themselves and to make sure the industry takes responsibility for it. If they stop targeting people who they know are vulnerable, well, then their profits are going to drop. So they don't want to do this stuff, and they'll go to any degree to make me out to be, I mean, I've been everything from a Methodist. Well, I'm Welsh, not really an insult. I'm not a Methodist. I'm actually Church of Wales, but I'll take Methodist. I don't know. I'm all but a Methodist nun who teaches Sunday school and is shrouded in sackcloth and ashes. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'll go to bingo.
Yeah.
You know, I would have a bet on the horses, but I am not addicted to gambling.
Yeah.
So, and they don't want that to come out. They don't want people to think that. Yeah, they'd rather be a prohibitionist than someone who just wants people to have a nice time in life without being exploited. Basically.
Exploited. That's exactly right. Sorry, excuse me, I have to cough.
Coronavirus.
Yeah, we've got a little less of it here, but it is definitely... Yeah, our death toll for the whole pandemic from beginning to end sits at about 44.
Good God.
Yeah.
That's excellent. I mean, if there's such a thing, that's excellent. I mean, it's not like that over here.
Yeah, we've approached things very differently. There's been a lot stricter, a lot more locking down, but yet ultimately a lot less locking down over the grand scheme because, we did it short and sharp and quick.
The word sharp was never something I would use in association with Boris Johnson. So maybe that was where we went wrong. Sharp and Boris don't really sit comfortable together, do they?
No, they really don't.
I mean, I haven't got a problem with Tories because I work with a lot of them. But Boris Johnson, I do find a little bit of an idiot, if I'm honest.
Is there any repercussions for saying things like that, or is that just how it is?
Who's going to say anything? I mean, I suppose they could be difficult with campaigns, but I'm only saying what a lot of them think. So,
I mean, there's no argument. Anyway, to the matter at hand. So now you are this menopause warrior and you have led this campaign around menopause. So why now and how did this start? Did somebody approach you? Did you decide that it was time? How did it all start?
So I have been talking about menopause in the House of Commons for about 4 years. So every International Menopause Day, we would have a debate and we'd all talk and we'd say nice things about how strong women are, and we'd have men standing up saying sometimes really sad stories. I remember one Tory minister getting up and saying how he remembers his mum being taken away to a psychiatric unit when he was a lad because she was, they thought, insane, only to discover that she was menopausal. Wow. Throughout this period that we were doing these debates, we were meeting with different kinds of campaigns. Individual women who'd got together with other women and had started to pinpoint an aspect of the menopause that they thought we could change and make a difference. And that all matters because they're all individual. But I'm a great believer that in silos, you only change bits. So we had one campaign, brilliant campaign, put these posters in doctor surgeries. So it gave women, to sit there and we're waiting for your appointment and you look at the wall and you think, oh, well, maybe that's what's wrong with me. Another lady who was really concentrating on the lack of training within the medical profession, which is a massive issue. So we had all these different people wanting to change aspects of how we looked at the menopause. And I had so much respect for them all, met them all, and any opportunity we had to showcase their campaigns, we did. We had them into Parliament and we gave them the opportunity to have photographs with people and to tweet out and create a little bit of a Twitter storm. And I've kept in contact with them and I've tried to do what I can to support them. So just before the pandemic, we were at the point where we were thinking about setting up what we call an all-party parliamentary group, which are, for an opposition MP like me, it is the only vehicle, it is a really good vehicle then to use to change or to influence legislation. And because I'd had success with gambling and that, I decided that I wanted to set up an APPG, which would bring a focus. Now, there are many, many APPGs. There are thousands and thousands and thousands. A lot of them are basically talking shops. So, example, there may be one on New Zealand.
Wow.
And people will get together maybe once or twice a year and they'll sit and they'll talk about New Zealand.
Right.
That's brilliant. But I don't really understand what that's meant to be achieving. And I don't know if there is one on New Zealand. I'm just using that as an example.
Because obviously that would be a very useful one if it was.
Oh, it would be brilliant. I'd be in it. I'd be chairing it.
You would.
And if there isn't one, I'll start one. So there are some APPGs that do different things in different ways. So some are like just relating to an issue or a country and using that as a vehicle to get out there and talk about things. Others will just talk. I've never been one for just talking. I firmly believe that you can talk all you like. If you don't do something, then what's the point in talking about it? So having had a successful model with the gambling stuff, I decided I wanted to do one on menopause, which was going to be meaningful and actually make change. So we were going to start it before the pandemic, then we couldn't do anything. So what we did then, we sort of kept on talking about it. And then come this year, just after Christmas, when we were starting to see some light of a very dark tunnel, we decided we're going to start this APPG. In the process of looking about how we were going to fund that and what we were going to do, when I get what is called a private members bill. So a private members bill is literally a raffle. We all get an opportunity to put our name next to a number, and that number gets put on a little bowl, and that bowl goes into a goldfish bowl. And the deputy leader of the house will have a little audience and we'll pick out 20 bowls. So there are 20 private members bill, which pretty much have got an opportunity of getting heard on a Friday morning, like there's 2 today or 3 today in the House of Commons, which gets an opportunity to get talked about and something happen to make that situation better.
Do you just put your name in, or do you have to have an issue already when you put it in?
At that time, it's just your name.
Oh, right.
You put your name next to a number and then it's up to you. So what happens once you've been called, and the higher up the list you are, the government have what they call handout bills. So it is stuff that they're already intending to implement, but they need a vehicle. So they think, oh, you're an MP who will want a result. So we will give you this. It's guaranteed to get through. It'll happen, but it's just how Parliament works. Instead of just bloody doing it, they want to make a thing of it.
Right.
So I was offered some handout bills, and anyone who knows me will tell you that if I'm interested in a subject, I'm interested in a subject because I would have spoke about it. But most important, it has to be relevant to me and my personality and the people I represent. So there are some issues which, if I'm quite honest, the people in my constituency have no bloody interest in whatsoever, so I never talk about them. So I get called number 3, they offer me some bills, and I'm like, oh no, that's really not me. Throughout this process, I'm saying, I want to do menopause, I want to do menopause, I want to do menopause. Now, with any private member's bill, you've only got a year. It's between one Queen's speech and the next Queen's speech.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a year. Right. So in that year, you have to have had your first, second, committee stage, third reading and legislation. So it has to be pretty uncomplicated.
Yeah.
So I was looking at that time around legislation to change how workplaces treat women going through the menopause. And at that time, put my hand up and say this, I was like, oh, we need mandatory employment practices. And I think that sounded good. And somebody had given me those words, so I thought I'll use them. Now I think completely differently. Having talked to businesses and talked to women, I think, no, that was a bloody stupid idea, but never mind. But that was going to take more than one government department. And then once they start talking to each other, well, it's a little bit like, ooh, right, well, that's not going to work, is it? Even getting two departments to actually respond to each other's emails within 6 months is pretty good going. So then, well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So I decided I needed to do something that one government department could actually do, or do something which would be a very positive thing in the space of time we had. So I'm having a conversation with colleagues in the House of Commons, and one of them said, I'm going to pick up my HRT now. And I said, oh, right. She said, yeah, that's 40 quid. And I said, what do you mean it's 40 quid? And she was explaining that when you first go on HRT, then there's a bit like trial and error, what you take, what dosage you take, which product you take. And so it was like 40 quid every month. I'm like, all right. Thinking, why is that? Because I live in Wales and prescriptions are free.
Ah, right.
So it was a little bit like a eureka moment. I thought, that's what we do.
Yeah.
They're free in Scotland, they're free in Wales. We'll go for free HRT in England. We'll get attention to the issue.
Yeah. What's the justification? Because the whole thing about the NHS, the wonderful NHS that pays for everybody and your medications for the most part. So what on earth is even the justification that they had to pay £40 for it?
Well, every item is £9 something.
Oh, is it?
And
right.
So if you have 4 items, you've got to pay 4 lots of £9 something.
Ah.
And with HRT, even though it's only one product, there are 2 hormones in it. So they were charging by the hormone.
Which is crazy.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
You'd have one tablet, but because there were 2 hormones in that tablet, then you were paying nearly 20 quid for 1 box of tablets. So anyway, I thought, well, we'll go for that. So I started talking to government ministers and I started to say, this is bloody stupid. And we started to have really positive conversations around, we'll try to do something. The closer we got to the bill, I started to realise that was going to be slightly more problematic than what I first anticipated. So in the beginning, I was absolutely convinced that we would get it free. What happened between then and the time that we had the second reading on the 29th of October was I started to receive emails, and there'd been TV interviews and other campaigns from other medical conditions who didn't get free prescriptions. Right. They started coming out of the woodwork. So they were making, and some people were making an argument, which I think is valid, but I didn't have the power to do that, which would make all prescriptions free, just like they are in Wales and Scotland, because we have devolved government. So we've made the decision that our health budget would include making medication free. I could see that there were some campaigns that were potentially, maybe this time next year, when the next round of private members' bills was coming up, that they were going to be saying, well, you've made HRT free, now you need to make... And I think the government got cold feet to a certain extent, because they were starting to think, my God, no, this is going to be expensive because we're going to get every other condition. I still maintain that HRT are the only hormones that people are paying for on prescription.
Right.
Everybody gets free contraception. So I started to make that argument, and then I thought, you know what? I would rather get something which gives us a win. So the compromise that we came to was that if you get a prescription for HRT, you only pay for it once in the year. And then and this was really funny because we were looking for stuff to fill the bill, to make it look a little bit more like, ooh, I knew what I was talking about. And I put this stuff in about cross-party and cross-government task force, and they just went in for that one. That was the biggie for them. That was like, oh God, no, can we do this? And I'm like, didn't really care, because I would do it anyway. But so they were like, how can we do this? What can we do? And the next thing, they're announcing that I'm co-chair of a government task force. And I'm like, ooh, that's giving me something for the CV, isn't it? And that was a massive one for them. And like me and the girls in the office are saying, does that mean we got more work? Does that mean we're going to have to go to more meetings? But we're going to do it because it's going to influence. But the APPG is really where I want to be concentrating the work. And then I want to influence the government with the APPG work. Yeah. So I will then go to the meetings with the government and say, well, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say you've got to do this because I've said.
Mm.
I'm going to say you're going to have to do this because the APPG have discovered, because we had taken evidence from anyone and everyone, literally anyone and everyone.
And so this is how you know that the GPs weren't being trained properly. So this is something that you're going to try and change.
A lot of people have done surveys and we've managed to get GPs to admit. I spoke to so many GPs who say, I never done it when I was in med school. And I mean, I just can't believe that an issue that affects 51% of the population is not looked at. The problem is that there are over 40 symptoms.
Yeah.
So they may learn what those symptoms are, but in connection to another condition.
Mm.
So, for example, the guy who just knocked my door is my neighbour, and it's not that I live in a posh street. I always say this. If I say to you, man next door is a consultant, he didn't always live here. He married a woman who lived here. He lived in a very posh place.
Right.
But he's now come to live in our street. But if I say, one side I have a GP, and I have a consultant, the other side I have a police officer, it makes it sound far more.
But you're an MP, so, they're like, next door I've got it.
Yeah, but this house was built for railway workers back at the turn of the century. I am not posh.
Right, okay.
My job title is a hell of a lot posher than I am.
Right.
I don't live posh, I'm going to get on a bus to town later on. I'll go and shop in the cheap supermarkets. I love a pound shop. I am not posh.
Okay.
But anyway, he is a urologist, and I started talking to him about this, and he was saying, so there's aspects of what he does of urology, which menopause will have an impact on, but he doesn't know until he started looking at that individual woman, whether the menopause has caused that. So he started to explain to me that all these different symptoms, and until somebody starts to it's joining the dots, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you my story when you're ready. But, when you go to a doctor with a symptom, if you're anything like me, you've already diagnosed yourself before you get there. So you've decided, I did actually do this once when these bloody books were coming around before Google, and there was one book on symptoms, Well, after reading that, I had bloody rickets. You look at all these different things that's wrong with you. And I know, so I don't believe in going on Google and put my symptoms in, because God knows what I come up with.
Right.
You home in on one thing, and that thing becomes the thing that you have. So you go to your GP and you say, well, I've got fibromyalgia because my knees are aching and I'm tired and I'm knackered and I'm worn out. It's only when you go back to him in 2 months' time and say, well, this tablets you give me for fibromyalgia, they're doing sweet FA. So it must be something else. And then, and the brain fog. Yeah. I can't remember, my kids' names. I can't remember my kids' names. I've got a male cat. I've got 2 sons living and a husband and a grandson. So when I'm talking to any of mine, and my son Tom goes bloody ballistic with me, because I'll say, Tom, Dave, Stu, Martin, Liam, Benji. And he'll say, I'm your son, my name's Tom.
I'm not the dog.
It's not that I don't love him, it's just a brain fog.
This is a good point to bring in your story. So did you know anything about menopause at all before it started happening to you? No.
Sweet effort.
Did your mother talk to you about it?
I remember my mother, who never told me about periods even. My mother would never have talked about sex, ever. Right. Sex. Right. Oh, other people did that. I think my mother and father probably had sex twice, and I was born, and they had a child before me, or they tragically lost when she was a baby. But, they didn't talk about things like that. That wasn't, my father wouldn't let me paint my toenails red and have my ears pierced, because that was like,
whore, were you a harlot?
Prostitutes do that. So talking about sex just wasn't going to happen. And I remember my mother and her sisters having a conversation about, I now know it was one of my aunties was going through the menopause or was having problems. And they asked me to leave the room. I was 36.
36?
But they didn't want me to learn about this.
Right.
I'd had kids by then, but no, it was too sensitive for my ears. But that's the society. I would think whether we could be British or whether, maybe New Zealand is a little bit more liberal, but we're not like that in Wales. I thought that you had hot flushes, your period stopped, and you felt shit. That's all I knew. Yeah. Basically. And when I'd lost Martin in 1989, and despite trying, just wasn't getting pregnant again, hit 40, and I went to university when I was 34 because I wanted to change. I wanted to channel all this awful grief that I was feeling into something positive. There's 2 ways it goes. You either go down and you go out, or you go up and you do something. And I wanted to go up and do something. So I hit 40, and I remember saying to David, I can actually remember putting something on the fridge with a sticker. And I said, I'm 40 now, it's not going to happen now, was it? And David saying, oh, well, what will be, it's not going to happen. In that January, I hadn't had a period, and thought, I'm on the change. And I can remember cooking Christmas dinner and feeling shit and thinking, oh, I'm going to come on any minute now. And I didn't. Went to the chemist and bought a pregnancy test. Done the pregnancy test and it's like positive. Had Tom. 2 years later, found myself pregnant again.
Right.
Felt really crap. Woke up one day, blood everywhere, rushed to hospital, ectopic pregnancy. So from then until 2010, my cycle was really weird. So I would go for months and not see, then I would see for months and not see, then I'd see for 2 days. And in the end, I was sort of like, out of every month, I was having a couple of days which were fairly reasonable. The rest were pretty shit. So when in 2010, I bled for probably about 6 months.
Non-stop.
And did nothing about it. Yeah. And I mean, I was wearing 20 sanitary towels. If I was sitting down, I was fine. If I got up, it was Niagara Falls. I have to come home and change. I was taking clothes to work. I was passing out on the floor of work. But I worked for someone who probably wasn't the most understanding woman in the world. And eventually a friend said to me, she was going on holidays for a fortnight, and she said, if you're alive and I come back, it's going to be a bit of a miracle, because if you looked in the mirror recently. And at that point, when I was climbing up the stairs to go to bed, or if I was going up the stairs to go to the bathroom, I do 2 steps, stop, sit down. 2 steps, stop, sit down. And then the same on the way down. So I phoned my GP and I said, look, this is what's happening to me. And he said, get down here now. So I go down there now. He takes my blood. He sends me and my husband down the hospital with the blood sample. He marks it as urgent. We give it in. We get back in the car. We drive him back up to the house. Just as I get outside the house, my mobile rings. It's my doctor. He said, go back. There's a bed for you. Walk into the ward. And the nurse actually said to me, oh, you're the woman who's the walking dead. So my hemoglobin was 4.
Right.
Before they could even look at what was wrong with me, I had 3 pints of blood and a pint of iron infused. Then they looked at me, found massive fibroids. So when people say, when did you last have a cycle? I don't honestly know when the period stopped and the fibroid started. So it could have been any time during that 7-year period. When I came out of hospital, I probably I felt really bad after having an ectopic pregnancy, but when I came out of hospital after these fibroids, oh God, it was horrendous. And for me, when I'd lost Martin in 1989 and they'd offered me antidepressants, I'd very much been of the mind, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to see this through, and I don't want anything to affect my grief. I didn't want to make my grief better, if I'm honest. I didn't want something that was going to stop me grieving, because I felt it was I needed to grieve. That was my punishment for whatever reason. Imposter syndrome again. But you feel, if you laugh or you smile, people are going to think you didn't have your child. So I went through all those things. And when I went to my doctor then, and by this time I had started wearing this pink bloody anorak with a fur collar. And I lived in this pink anorak with a fur collar. And one of my dear friends, Emma, was with me every day. She'd take me shopping. I'd get into the supermarket. In my imagination, somebody would look at me and I'd leave my trolley and walk back out. So I was not functioning as a normal human being. I thought I was wallowing. I thought I was wallowing in my grief. I just felt that to say I'd lost my confidence just don't touch it. I'd lost me.
Right.
I had lost me. So I assumed that because I'd not taken the antidepressants when I lost Martin, that I was now feeling the consequences of that. So I went to my GP and said, I'm having a nervous breakdown. That's how I started on antidepressants, because I diagnosed myself. I didn't tell him that my nails were brittle. I didn't tell him that I was feeling hot in the night. I didn't tell him that my legs would be restless leg syndrome, and some nights I wanted to scream because I couldn't get my legs to stop feeling the way they felt. I didn't tell him anything. I just said to him I was having a nervous breakdown, and my GP was bloody marvellous. And I always remember him saying to me that one day when it was over, I was going to say, what the fuck happened? And I became an MP whilst he was still practicing, and I invited him up to London, him and his wife, because they were coming up for a weekend, and I invited him into the House of Commons, and we sitting on the terrace in the House of Commons having a drink, and he looked at me and he said, what the fuck happened? I said,
right.
But even then I didn't know that I'd been menopausal.
Right. Sorry, you decided that your menopause was a belated grief from your son
Yeah,
dying. So
yeah,
that's so sad. That's so much.
yeah,
Like, oh my
yeah.
God. Sorry. Anyway,
And I
yes.
know, I think in my mind, I convinced myself for every time I'd laughed and enjoyed myself,
Oh,
I was being punished now because I wasn't showing the world just how awful I felt about losing Martin.
God.
Unless you've lost a child, you can't begin to imagine just how awful that is.
Yeah, no,
And
I've got no idea.
and I think me anyway, definitely, I want to be punished. I wanted to be. It's a little bit like the sackcloth and ashes thing. If I was a monk, I'd probably be whipping myself because I had done something so awful in my life. Can't tell you what that was because I don't know. But I'd done something so awful in my life that God had decided that I needed to be punished, and losing Martin was that punishment. So how could I then? The brain's a weird thing, that you think these things. But this is what I was convincing myself. And when you're in a depression, it gets worse and worse. So you go from thinking, I'm going to be okay. And within 5 seconds, not only are you not okay, but you've lost your job. You haven't got the money to pay the mortgage. The man is going to come and repossess any furniture you may have had on HP. It just becomes all consuming. But you cannot function. You cannot think about anything other than the end of the world. And that's the way I was. Everything was the end of the world. So I needed something, and he gave me antidepressants. So it took about a good 5 months for antidepressants to kick in. And I was up there with the dose. I was on 70 milligrams of citalopram.
Right.
And gradually over the years, I came down to 30. I can't tell you. It was just, but they have become, and probably less so now because I've started HRT this year, but they have become my crutch. So I am terrified, or was terrified, not to take these antidepressants.
Of course.
Because the pink coat looms in the cupboard. And Emma, who I see nearly every day, when I'm having a bad day, she will say to me, oh, it's not pink coat time. That's become like a code word. So come Christmas, when I'm feeling really sad about Martin's birthday's in January. I lost my dad on New Year's Eve last year. I lost my mum, who was my absolute soulmate. My mum was my life. I lost her 6 months before I became an MP. Those were times when I could have been back in that pink coat really easily because I'm an only child, and as vulnerable as I am, I've become stronger. So the balance for me is hiding my vulnerability with this bravado, this show, this having a good laugh, being the person who'll crack a funny, being the person who'll turn the Christmas tree lights on in Downing Street and laugh about it. Whereas somebody else might be like, oh my God, I can't believe I've done that. For me, it's like, yes, result, done it. But I suppose, Penny, and maybe because I'm talking to you across the water, and maybe nobody in this country will hear this podcast, I can be perfectly honest and say that the real me, I know. My husband knows the real me because he's been here on the low days. But the real me, Emma knows and David knows. Very few people know the real me because I am not this bolshy, brave, gobby, confident person. I am really insecure and really anxious and nervous and terrified that I'm going to fuck up big time.
Do you know what? I think everybody is. Everybody is, particularly people in the public eye.
I think women get it worse.
Absolutely.
I think women get it worse.
Yeah. Especially because we're called bolshy. Men aren't called bolshy. Shrill, bossy, strident.
I come from a generation where, and I come from a place where 50 years ago, men were giving their wife a clipper on the ear roll because the dinner wasn't on the table in time. And, do you know, I'm ashamed to say, I probably saw and heard about that and didn't think anything about it. It's taken till now for me to realise, you cheeky fucker, how dare you? And stand up to them. But that's not in my nature to say that. I suppose I got principle, and maybe my principle is slightly growing in confidence, whereas the me is maybe getting a little bit, the real me is shrinking and what I've become and the platform I've got is giving me the confidence. And that's what I'm about. It's about using my platform. I know I run this Christmas campaign, nothing to do with menopause, but it started when I first became an MP, when I realised that people who were using food banks, they were actually having tins of beans and spaghetti for Christmas Day. And I'm like, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Everybody deserves something on Christmas Day. So the first year we did it, I asked people for money and we did 100 hampers. And I can't see people who are not having those basics not have them when I have got a platform which gives me letters after my name, which says that if my office phones someone and say, hello, I'm from Carolyn Harris. And I got one girl who does talk really nice. So she's the one who makes all the phone calls. She'll phone and say, hello, I'm from Carolyn Harris's MP's office. And, blah. And they'll say, oh yeah, what does she want? If I was Carolyn Harris living in Brondig, who was just phoning them up and saying, look, I'm really pissed off that these people haven't got any food, they'd say, oh, well, that's really sad but tough.
Yeah.
So I use my platform to make things better for other people.
Right.
And that's my personality.
When did you find out that it was menopause?
About 2 years ago, I started talking to these women who were campaigning on different issues, and they were saying, oh, this happens and that happens and this happens and that happens. And I'm thinking, hey, I think I was going through the menopause. And gradually came to the awakening that was I going through the menopause? Was I through the menopause? I don't really know. Am I through it now? I don't know. I'm 61. But what I do know is that whatever it is I lost during that time, those hormones, no bugger's going to put them back in. They're not going to regrow. They're not going to suddenly wake up one morning and I've got testosterone. But I didn't understand the need for them. So it was only this year when we started on the revolution, and I was having a call, as you do, with Davina McCall.
Yes, as you do. I love Davina McCall. I love her.
Davina are chatting away, and she's telling me about her experience with HRT, and then says, are you seeing a big difference since you've started taking HRT? And I'm like, no, I'm not on it. And she said, what? You're not on it? I said, well, no, I'm too old. I'm 61. And then I started talking to medical professions. Unfortunately, I had to go private because I wanted... Now, the one hormone which we desperately need on prescription, but it's not licensed for females in the UK, is testosterone.
Yeah.
So, and that's in Australia. So the only way that we can get that is to go private. So that if I'm going to go private for that, then I will go private for it all. So the two hormones I could get on prescription. But Penny, do I want to go to my GP, who I don't really know because I never go there now since my favourite doctor's gone? Do I really want to go there and sort of beg and say, please, can I have it, when I can just go? Because I can afford to do that.
Yeah.
Now, when I retire, then I'm going to be in shit street and I'm going to have to go and beg for it. Right. But I'm working now and I can afford it. And I just think that my job now is to find a way of convincing those GPs that they need to be doing this for all women. Because at this moment in time, the treatment for menopause is only for women who can afford to be treated for menopause. Yeah. Women who are working class, one, they're not recognising their menopausal because they don't know what it is. They can't find the time to go to the GP. When they do go to the GP, they've been sent for tests for other things. And most of them are like, oh, well, my mother put up with it, so I'm going to put up with it. And that's what I want to do. I want to say to these women, I'm like you, I'm like your mother. Yeah. No, I have suddenly discovered that my life is turning around because sisters are doing it for themselves, and that this is what this is all about. Yeah. And with someone like Davina McCall and Penny Lancaster and Gabby Logan and all these women who are in the public eye in jobs where they are terrified to talk about their age and the fact they're aching because it means work dries up. If they are prepared to say, I'm this, I'm doing this, then why the hell can't I?
Fantastic.
And the number of women in the House of Commons who are MPs and the number of men in the House of Commons who have come on to me quietly and said, and we're all intelligent people, maybe I'm not as intelligent as them, but we all have a modicum of intelligence which actually says we've got to where we are. We can stand up in the House of Commons and we can give a speech. None of us are Shakespeare, but we can give a speech. Other people listen, and sometimes things happen. But if we don't know we're menopausal, what chance? My friends now all know they're on the menopause, even if they're not, because I've told them they
Of
are.
course.
So they obviously must be. But I've not met a woman of my age who was not feeling some of the consequences of being menopausal, but they can't afford to do anything about it.
Wow.
That's the tragedy in this,
Yeah.
that we have to change that mindset.
Absolutely. Have you talked about it with your sons at all, your family?
Oh, God, my sons. Poor buggers. You've got a few of them, haven't they? Oh, it's like, oh, my sons. He's my middle son, but obviously he's my eldest, my oldest living son. And his wife is like, oh, your mother's brilliant. And she talks to him. So he's like, he takes her in the straight. My youngest one is 20. So I'm an embarrassment. And he's like, Mom, have you got to be on social media? Oh, you go to a friend's house and then mothers will say, oh, I know your mother is. And you're like, oh, Mom, please don't. Please, Mom, can you not do that? And Mom, please don't say this. And so he does love me, but I think he could do with me going in the box for a bit. But
he'll thank you when his wife goes through menopause.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what I have noticed is, to go back to the Christmas campaign, part of what we do, we work with a big football team and a big rugby team, but the Swans and the Ospreys. So a fortnight ago, I went over to the football game and we did a bucket collection. And part of that was we went around the lounges, and I was really gobsmacked how many men going to the football came on to me and said, oh, you're the menopause woman. My wife loves you. Oh, I tell you what, I'm so glad. Because since she heard you were talking, she's gone and then. So it is happening. Women are now saying, that's what's wrong with me, that I need to go and do about it. And women are now going to their GPs and saying, stop trying to fob me off now with antidepressants and sleeping tablets. I'm not having it. I'm menopausal. I want HRT. So we are on a mission now to make sure that doctors are trained. We're on a mission to make sure that doctors stop thinking about this rubbish about HRT is dangerous. They've got to acknowledge the fact that that study was shit. But apart from that, it was about old HRT, not the new stuff, which is body identical. It's about stopping putting women in a box and expecting women to shut up and put up, just get on with their life, because they need to start to have respect. It's about kids in schools actually leaving school knowing that, yeah, you're going to have a period, yeah, you're going to have a baby, and this is how you have a baby. But you know what? One day she's going to fucking turn on you and you're going to think, what's going on here? And it's because she's on the menopause. And I want workplaces to say, what can I do? What can this workplace do to make the women in here stay and feel comfortable? I'll go back to this mandatory workplace policy. I work with some really brilliant companies, and one of the companies I work with, I'm not going to name them because I don't want to embarrass them, but I went to see them about something else, and I asked them about their menopause policy, and they showed me this app, which is on the phone, on the computer, on the iPad. Every person who is in management has got it. And do you know, I reckon, Penny, if you said to it, can you order me a Chinese, it would.
Right.
It tells you this, it tells you that. I went then and I spoke to the girls working there, and I said, how's the menopause policy working for you? And they're like, have we got one?
Yeah.
And I realised that when you make something compulsory and mandatory, that's what's going to happen. The management will have a legal obligation to put it in, and it'll be in a filing cabinet or on an app, and it'll be things like 2 clean uniforms a week, ability to work from home, flexible working, coming in later, going home earlier. But if you were working in a school or a factory or a hospital or a supermarket, you can't work from home. If you were working in an office, you haven't got a uniform. I don't want it to be a policy which ticks a box,
so to speak.
I want every individual workplace to say, this is what matters for our women, because the women have told us.
Right.
And then it needs to be flexible. So that's what I am now on workplace policies.
So you're wanting to be more education as a broad church as opposed to actually specific things.
Education is key to
yes,
this.
absolutely.
Without the right education, the whole environment around menopause could change if we started teaching kids in school about the menopause, because by the time they decide to be doctors, they're going to say, well, where does the menopause come in on this curriculum? We need medical schools to stop pretending that women don't exist and say 51%. Can you imagine a world where testicular cancer or prostate cancer was not something that people were studying.
Yes.
Wouldn't happen.
No, I know. And it's like, if you want women to have the babies, then you got to fucking deal with what happens when they have the babies. And that's just such a fundamental thing that's been completely overlooked. And it is astonishing to me.
And I've met female doctors who said up until they were of an age, they were saying, oh, come on, get on with it.
Yeah.
They all of a sudden, they got hit by the juggernaut and they're like, oh my God, how many women did I send away from you and told, deal with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the truth of this.
So now I have been asked to speak in New Zealand's Parliament, which is very hilarious, next week. It's a combination of different women's groups, and they want me to talk to them about menopause, actually inspired by what's happening in the UK and probably you. So I wondered what you thought that I should say to them.
Yeah, I'd be saying to them, how much do they know about it? How much do they think the doctors know about it? And how much do they believe that the schools and women know about it? Because they are the key things. Education, I cannot say that strongly enough. It's about making sure that everyone understands that this is something that's going to happen. Some women will sail through it. Other women, the highest rate of suicide amongst women is 45 to 51. There's got to be a link, isn't there? When we go through the menopause, something happens in our brain which completely changes our personality. Sometimes that'll be for the best. Sometimes it'll make us do things that are completely out of character.
Yeah.
I said earlier on that I do a lot of work on problem gambling. The worst time for women to get into problem gambling, and all too often end up committing crime to fund it and in prison, is during those years when they are quite likely to be menopausal. They use gambling as self-medication. Women who are distraught,
right?
Women who are looking for something to distract them will do things, rather than go to the doctor and get HRT or wherever, they will end up doing things they think will make them feel better. Gambling has become one of those things. Alcohol has become one of those things. Drugs have become one of those things. Erratic behaviour. I mean, I think you would have heard Penny and Rod Stewart saying she was chucking saucepans around the living room. Jekyll and Hyde. And it can be flare up and flare down. And I think a lot of it is frustration. Why do I feel like this? And I shouldn't have to feel like this. And it's just really, so it's education. If we knew what we could expect, and if people were prepared to actually treat us with that respect, to make sure that we get what we want or get what we need.
Are you through it all now, for the most part?
Well, I'm on HRT. I don't think you're ever through it, do you?
Right.
Because those hormones don't grow back.
Yeah.
So if I've lost my testosterone and I've lost my estrogen and my progesterone, I'm not going to wake up one morning and I'm now 65. I don't need it. I wouldn't be saying that if I was a diabetic. It doesn't. As you reach a certain age, you don't need insulin. Yeah. Once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah. And I think we all should bear that in mind. That I know from talking to private doctors, they put women on HRT when they're 80.
Right.
What I would say about now is that I am feeling better since I've gone on HRT. Some days I go into work and the girls will say to me, you've overdosed on the testosterone of now, because I'm like really bolshy. Right. Oh, I think I'm really. And other days I'll go in and I think maybe I forgot to take it for a couple of days, or maybe I've gone to London and I've left it at home, which I got to confess I have done. And I can start to feel myself dipping a bit.
Right, okay.
I've come down on the antidepressants. I'm down to 20 milligrams.
Right.
And I think probably give me another couple of months and I'm going to go down to 10. I'm doing that myself. I haven't gone back. I'm terrified to go to my doctors because I think they're going to say, what the fuck have you done to us? Telling everyone that we put you on antidepressants. So I'm terrified to go to them because I don't want them to think I've demonised them. Because I haven't.
Well, you've just done what's right for you. You've got it. And that's the thing. I mean, do you stand back and think to yourself, I've educated so many women about themselves and feel proud about that? Because I think you should.
No.
You don't feel like that?
I don't. Because it's the imposter syndrome, isn't it? Well, no. If you say to me, I love the colour of your hair. If you say to me, oh, that's a nice dress, I'm like, oh, thank you very much. Say to me, you've done really well. Or, oh, wow, how did you do that? I'm like, oh, shut up, it's only me. If I go to visit somewhere and they'd expect the MP, I always think, oh, bless them. I'm going to turn up. They're going to be so disappointed. I'm not what they think I'm going to be. And I know I really worry that people make an effort because I'm turning up.
Yeah. Well, stop that. Now, because I've just met you for an hour, you are totally going to listen to me instead of 61 years of self-sabotage. But you are fabulous and you're doing fabulous work. So stop that. And yeah, you really are. And, you know, I've heard about you on the other side of the world.
I can't believe that. That's gobsmacking.
Davina McCall is, I love long lost families. I love long lost families. And and I used to live in London for a while. And a friend of mine loves Davina. And I was looking at her Instagram and then just reading about your story and then looking at you. And I was like, I wonder if she'd like to talk to me. And I was really shocked that you did. So now I'm like, oh, she wants to talk to me. And she's this fancy.
I'll talk to her. Oh, I love a chat. I love it. I love an opportunity to have a frank conversation.
Yeah, I'm always up for that. That's for sure.
I can't do anything else. I am where I am. Yeah. What's on the tin? I can't be posh because it's not me.
You've said that many times. Okay. You know, wait, I'll stop talking to you like this, like you're sort of feeling at home at the Houses of Parliament.
But I have got a girl in the office who's got a telephone voice. We use her a lot.
Okay, well now, I don't know if you read, because you're so busy, did you read the question that's about the out-of-the-box fun fact menopause question? I have a feeling you might not have done that.
Well, a fun fact about me. Okay, another fun fact about me is I am desperate to get on Strictly Come Dancing.
Oh my God, you've just blown your modesty right out of the water.
But the reason why I want to go on that is when I was, from the time I was 8 to the time I was 16, I was a ballroom dancer.
Oh my God. You'd be like the surprise. You'd just come and you'd be fantastic.
Maybe my fun fact is I want to be on Strictly in my dreams. Maybe I want to have a dream every Saturday night that puts me on Strictly. But I would love
They would lap you up. They would lap you up because you're sparky and you're funny and you're frank. They love that shit, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll get out there and be all twinkle toes and they'll be like, oh my God, it's amazing. Well, I hope that this happens. I always used to say, I would love to do Dancing with the Stars, but it's not called Dancing with the Bin on the television every now and then. Because that's quite difficult. So keep this work up. Absolutely. I look forward to that.
Well, I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I can dream, can I?
Yeah.
I've been to watch it.
Oh, you have?
And actually, when I went to watch it, guess who was the star guest who was doing the singing? Rod Stewart.
Oh, there you go.
It was in the stars, wasn't it? Literally in the stars.
Well, I think that's a really good place to end. I would adore to see you pass the doblaying and foxtrotting around. My husband hates it though, so I'd have to watch it alone, but that's fine.
We've had problems with this husband of yours, haven't we? We need to get him sorted somehow.
Okay. Well, if we ever come back over to see his parents at some point, I will bring him to you and you can...
I'd love that. And if ever you want me to come and talk to your New Zealand Parliament, I'll come over there.
Okay, fantastic. You know what? I think that's a really good idea. I'll bring that up. I'll offer that. I will offer that. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's been an utter delight to meet you and to talk to you. And
you, Penny.
And congratulations on everything that you have achieved. And you are marvellous.
Tell me that you like my top and I'll take it. But don't tell me anything else.
I like your hearts on the wall behind you.
Yeah, handmade.
Very nice. Oh, very good. See, look at that. And you can do that as well. You're very fabulous.
Oh, I love knitting. I'm a massive knitter.
Right. Okay, cool. This is the longest podcast I've done at...
I'm so sorry. Cut it down.
I will be editing it, that's for sure. But anyway, diolch.
Lovely to meet you. Look after yourself. And if you want me for anything, just give me a bell.
Okay, gorgeous. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye. Cheers. So that was the fierce, feisty and fabulous Carolyn Harris MP, who has been through so much but is still laughing and fighting for the rights of others. So can we please give her another round of applause? Menopause is literally so hot right now in the UK. There's Carolyn's APPG and there's also a menopause in the workplace inquiry. Now in New Zealand, I spoke in Parliament last week, hilarious, via Zoom, and it went really well. And it was great to have MPs from Labour, National and the Greens, as well as a couple of menfolk, proving that issues like these cross political boundaries and bring people together in just seeking education and diagnosis. I have 2 episodes left in this season of Showy Ovaries before I return next year, including with a live recorded podcast that will be recorded at Bats Theatre in Wellington at the end of January. The menopause revolution is well and truly taking over everywhere. Until then, please share this podcast. It is becoming more and more apparent that women still don't know diddly squat about their pinky bits, and we need to spread the word. It's available in a dizzying array of podcast broadcasters, so I'd love you to get the news out there on your socials so we can yet again educate people. The amount of people I'm talking to that were like, I didn't know until I was in it. We want people to know before they're in menopause. And I just want to give a shout out to Anna Forsyth, one of my patrons. And if you wanted to head to Patreon to support the podcast, that'd be ace. Stay tuned for next week when we will have renowned Australian feminist Jane Caro. And for the finale, it's New Zealand's own Lewissa Wall MP. Till then, everyone, as Piggy says, stay juicy. And I'll see you next time on Showy Ovaries. Ka kite.